Hello. Hello.
Okay, it looks like we're waiting for a few more. I'll pause for another minute or two. We don't have Desiree, Lois was with us. Christine, yep. Polly, no. Doris, Jeffrey, 1, 2. Hi, Bethany. It's Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hi. For the note taking, do you we do this a couple ways. You could project the document and take the notes as people share their feedback, or if it's easier, I can just project the document and you can type and take the notes kind of separately. I think it tends to work well when people can see the notes as they're added, but if it's easier for you to not project and just do it as people speak, that works too.
Yeah, we can try it that way. That's fine.
Okay, great. Well, we're missing 3, but in the interest of time, let's keep going. I'll make sure, and then as others join in, we do have about 19 minutes for this first section. So if the additional 3 or 4 people trickle in, we can incorporate their feedback as well. So on our first document here, our first feedback area is about the site and landscape design. On the slides that were shared with you, slides 16 through 31 kind of give a deeper dive into the site and landscape design. And I think folks had a chance to review that, but certainly during this another 15 minutes we have, if you want to take another look at those slides, slides 16 through 31, you can do that as we provide feedback. But what I'd like to do is, to facilitate, I'm going to ask that folks use the hand raising feature in Microsoft Teams. If you click at the top reactions, you'll see the hand raise, and I will call on folks and we'll give everyone a chance. We'll do a first round, give everyone a chance to share, and then we'll go back through an additional round of feedback after everyone who shared has had a chance. So that's how we'll proceed. And again, we have about 15 minutes for this first feedback, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Any questions about
this is Doris Ray.
I'm sorry?
This is Doris Ray. So I'm on the phone, but
okay, sorry.
you'll also ask if people on the phone have
Correct. Yeah, yes,
okay.
absolutely,
Okay.
Doris.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about my connection. Would you mind sharing? And then also, when I take notes, I'll have to scroll down in order to see where I'm typing and to make sure I'm typing it correctly. So
No
that
problem.
may bring, yeah, the image may not be in view.
Okay, yeah, no
Well,
problem.
maybe it would be better if she does it separately to keep the image in view if people are referencing the image to ask a question.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I'm afraid of.
no
Yeah.
problem. Okay, no worries. Yeah, I'll do that now. Just give me 1 second to okay, I'm gonna need to 1 second because I want to be able to see the hand raising. So let me go. Sorry about that. Okay. And I will enlarge this. Just a little bit larger. Okay. Okay, so I just need to be able to see the hands being raised. This is one. There's going to be one challenge here. So when I go to full screen here, I cannot see who's raising their hand.
Well, Jonathan, there's only a few of us. You just want to call out our names and just go down?
Sure. Yep, that's a great suggestion. Let me pull up the list of names. And then I can minimize this down into the corner here so people can still see
I think it's Cynthia with her hand up is what I can see.
Cynthia, why don't you start us off while I get this list up? So the first, what do you like about the the landscape and site design here?
Okay, so I'm just going to say, I mean, generally I see some perfecting things, but overall, it looks like it looked before, it looks really good, but so let me just say right off, one thing that I really liked from the last one that looks like it's drawn in now is the physical connection from the parking lot to the old building. So I'm really glad you have sketched that in, and that looks like that's something you intend. Next thing is that these are kind of questions. If you can see the field, it's clear to me that there are trees on Highland, but are those trees or shrubs that are on the north and the south? I can't, they look smaller, so I don't know so my question is, are those trees or shrubs that are on the north and south of the field? That's question one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know the answer, or should I keep going with my question?
I don't. Let's add that question. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay.
We can get the answer.
Okay,
Yep.
great. My next question is, if you go down to the two between the current library, we know the library is leaving, but the current library and the new facility, is that open, or is there going to be an awning? Because on the drawings, it's not really clear if there's a covering that's going to cover that area, or if it's just open. I'd be curious to know. Do you see what I'm talking about between the existing library and the entrance to the school?
Mm-hmm.
And my last question is, the new play areas that are over for the Montessori school, are they going to be fenced in? Because that's not, I can't, maybe it is on the drawing, but I can't tell whether or not there's fencing. And since it's so proximate to the street, I would hope that there's some kind of fencing. Clearly there's going to be trees, but some kind of fencing for safety.
No, those are great questions. Bethany, do you need any of them repeated?
No, I think I have all of them.
Okay, great. And we can include those in the bottom section, the questions. It's not necessarily outside of scope because it's relevant, but just plug them into the that bottom box there, if you wouldn't mind, just for the. Okay, let's go. Desiree, are you here with us? Okay, Michael, I saw you. Michael, do you want to share what you like or any questions?
Sure. First, I would just follow up with where Cynthia left off. I also had a curiosity about whether the play areas around the Montessori at the number 5 sections would be fenced off. I know that the illustrations are just illustrations, and I doubt we're even talking about the new Montessori building at this point, but those areas will have to be fenced off because one of them is going to be for primary age kids, 3 to 6 year olds. So I know that maybe that's worth including in future illustrations. The building, the new building, the ACC building at the number 1 rectangle, I had a weird thought about whether those jagged inlets on the sidewalk, whether there needs to be more vegetation there. I just kind of imagine them. I know they're open sidewalk area, but I just kind of imagine that they might sort of be forgotten spaces where, the wind piles up the leaves. Maybe it's a good place to put a small shrub or a tree and makes it a little bit more attractive from the Walter Reed perspective. But that's it.
Great, thank you for that. Christine.
Yeah, thanks. So a general comment, I looked at these materials before the meeting, but I found them very hard to take in without commentary. And I know we're trying to do this for expediency, but I'd like to make a request that there be some presentation in the large group of these materials because I'm struggling to absorb all the content. And some of these slides seem to have to do with traffic flow on the site. But the stop number you gave us on the slides to look at was 29, and it looks like the bus movement slides continue after that. So I'm not sure if we're supposed to be commenting on that now or not.
Yeah, no, I don't think in this section, but we will have a chance to get to that.
So for this section, are we focusing on the green spaces again? I'm just a little confused by what we're supposed to be talking about now.
Yeah, the more focusing on the landscape and site layout, but really heavily more on the landscaping for this particular.
Okay, so we'll talk about traffic flow patterns later.
Yes, we'll have a chance to capture that, and if it's explicitly called out, we'll make sure that we capture your feedback.
Okay, yeah. Great, thank you. So my overall concern trying to take it in is it feels, to me, it feels very tight on the site for as many users as we are planning on the site. There is open space around the building, but in this interim period where we have three buildings on the site and, 1 building being built and 2 existing buildings, I don't think there's enough space for all the users. I don't have a student at MPSA right now, but I had a student at Henry when it was a 400 student school, which is about the size of MPSA, and the number of students coming out of that building and the amount of space that I recall it taking is much wider and bigger than what is shown on this site now. So you're losing a lot of exits from the building. So it feels to me very tight to be able to accomplish that. I'm not as familiar with high school dismissal because I haven't been as intimately involved with that. But again, it feels like it just feels like it could be difficult from a workflow perspective to get all the people in and out of the buildings. And I think we'll talk about buses later, but likewise, the bus loop feels small to me to accomplish everything that we're trying to accomplish. And I echo the concerns about proper fencing for the Montessori playground. And I think we also need to be thinking about the construction fencing. So when we're building that new school so close to the existing school, how far out from that building is there going to need to be fencing for safety purposes? And are we sure that we have enough space to be able to do that safely? Again, when I was familiar with that building, that exit that we're seeing onto what's the existing blacktop now had a lot of kids coming in and out of that on a regular basis. Is that going to be closed off completely because there's not a lot of space between the existing building and the new school? Is there going to be a fence right there? Are we losing that as an exit to that building? And does that pose any safety or other concerns? So I'm just struggling to understand what the vision is, because I think there's really not a lot of, I know we're trying to create more green space on the site, but it is still incredibly tight, what we're seeing right now. So that is my initial reaction.
Great. Thank you, Christine. Thank you for that feedback. Polly? Doris?
This is Doris, and I'm gonna say that I'm having a hard time with the schematics, but essentially from what I know about it, and we're commenting on the landscaping, I am hoping that certainly the path of travel, particularly walkways and such, will be wide enough, and that that's a pretty flat site right now, at least. But that any problems with steeper slopes, throughout the landscaping need to be fully accessible. And with playgrounds, I'm wondering whether you're going to ensure that the surfacing is accessible as well, so that kids with wheelchairs or other mobility devices are able to use them, and that transitions from grassy spaces, from sidewalks or other accessible paths are going to be maneuverable by somebody who is using a chair or a scooter, so that kids with disabilities can also play in the same space that kids without disabilities can. And I'm wondering about the width of all of the walkways. Are they going to be at least 5 feet so that there's passing space? So that even looking at the schematic, I cannot tell that, from where I'm sitting. So.
No, thank you. No, that's great feedback. And I do know, the universal designs for learning are part of our design principles, and I know our team will, accessibility on all of our playgrounds. We have students with disabilities at all 42 of our schools, and it is important that all of our spaces are accessible.
But we need to be using at the absolute minimum, the ADA 2010 design standards, including for playgrounds.
Great feedback.
And for garden spaces and such.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Doris. Jeffrey. I'll go back to a few others in case they've hopped on the call. Desiree, are you with us? Do you want to share any feedback? Okay, Lewis. And then Polly. Okay, I don't think they were able to join us. All right, let's move on. We have maybe one more.
Before we move on, I was looking ahead at the questions that were sent, and I don't see that there are questions coming up on the bus flow. So I think people should comment on that specifically here now.
Okay. Sure. Yep. Let's go through another second round and let's add in anything here on if you want to make a comment on anything related to busing, we can certainly capture that here. We'll go through one more time. I'll start from the top. Cynthia, anything you'd like to add with regard to busing and circulation through the site?
Well, actually, there were two. You said that we would do a second round, and I did have questions right now not related to.
That's yeah. Let's do it. Yeah, please.
But
I did.
See that area? There's the site plan key where it has different colors and it tells you whatever. But there's an area right to the I guess if you're staring at it, it's to the right of the Montessori school leg that goes down, and it's a different color. It's kind of a very faint green. It's not over in the key, so I can't. So this is another question, like, what is that? Do you happen to know what that is? Is that going to be a rain garden? Is that, I mean, what is that? I think the pale gray or very pale blue is supposed to represent cement, but do you see that kind of pale green? Do you know what that is supposed to be?
I don't, but let's capture that in the notes, and we'll make sure, because there's probably going to be others with that question. And I know one of the things we do with this process is.
Do you see the area that I'm talking about? So it's outside of. If you can move your little arrow.
I think that's the existing fish pond, but I don't know if Michael can comment on that. That should be the koi pond, if it's still there.
Yeah, we would love it to be the new koi pond. The current koi pond is whoever's got the cursor right where you were.
Right here?
Yeah.
Okay, right here. Okay.
What
Yeah.
is right at the bend, on the inside bend of the dotted red line or whatever that is. A little higher from there, but anyway, that's
anyway,
where it's what we call the courtyard.
Yeah, my
and the koi pond is in there.
What is that, or what is that? Okay, and I hope it's a pond too, if that's what everybody likes.
Yeah, we call it the courtyard for the school. It's got the koi pond, but it's just kind of a general outdoor space.
Okay. And then the other question that occurred to me, if you go right over to Walter Reed and 9th Street, right at the corner, there looks like a planting something or other, but the bushes are in a different color. So what does that represent there? Maybe it's a sign that says, welcome to, the Career Center High School. I don't know. But if someone could clarify kind of what that is. And then
I'm sorry, what is that intersection again? I'm sorry, Walter Reed and what else?
And 9th, right there at the corner,
Okay.
There's kind of something that looks, maybe it's bushes, but it's a different color than the other tree things. Of course, maybe not so. If you see, it just hit me, except it's in a little box. Do you see that? It's kind of a little box. But you have that same kind of coloring over there up by what I think must be the daycare space. Yeah, up there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Anyway, if there's different coloring, people want to know what it is, right? And then in terms of so I'm glad Christine is raised circulation. It's always been I think last time we saw a slide that had or I think in the slides they had a lot of incoming, off of Walter Reed, but then you had people going right and left on Highland, buses going right and left on Highland, and Highland's kind of small. So I don't, I guess I'm curious to hear what Christine has to say too. It'd be nice to know better how that's going to function. I'm done.
Great. Thank you, Cynthia. I'm just going right down the list. So Michael, any additional comments to add in the final round here, this section? Okay, Christine, any additional comments? Do you want to speak to the transportation?
So like I said, I'm trying to absorb the slides on buses, and if I'm looking at them correctly, I think there's a representation of buses in blue. I don't know if those are to scale and if they represent the accurate number of buses that are planned. It feels, again, it doesn't, it looks to me like it's ambitious. I'd like to understand if the buses are to scale and if they represent the correct number of buses. And there's also a different number, and maybe Michael can comment on this, but like on the existing MPSA arrival, it looks like it's showing 3 buses, but on dismissal, it looks like it's maybe showing 6 buses. I don't know why that would be. Maybe the buses arrive at different times. Again, I'm concerned that that it would be difficult to have it just, to me, again, having had children at that school as a 500 student school years ago, the space for buses and students entering does not seem sufficient, what I'm seeing on these diagrams, to actually be workable. And I don't know, in addition to showing buses, if we can show massing of children. Like, is the thought that kids will go directly into the school? I know kids at a lot of schools will arrive and gather on the playgrounds or in public spaces before the doors, like kids used to line up in the parking, like in the playground area, and then walk into school. Is that what's going to happen? Is there queuing for that? Or is the thought that everybody goes directly into the school as they arrive? Again, as a site neighbor, I'm just trying to really understand how the traffic flow and people flow is supposed to work in and out of these buildings. So.
Thank you. Doris, any additional comments?
Actually, it's a question, kind of.
Okay, sure.
And it comes from when you started this, you were talking about the covered area. I think you were saying that goes from either Fillmore or Waterreed to the school building, right? The new school building. Right. So what I'm asking about that, so is that what I'm seeing in my mind's eye is that there's going to be this walkway that's covered that could be entered from the actual sidewalk? So is that a true statement?
I'm not
of
entirely
what's on
sure.
there? You
I'm
were
not entirely
asking us to comment on something about the covered walkway.
Oh, no, not just if you have any questions about it, not specifically that walkway, but just in general, if that is a question, we can make sure that it gets answered and relay that back to the design team.
No, I didn't. I wasn't understanding why you were asking about us about that.
Oh no, I didn't have a specific question about that. It was
okay.
I think one of the other.
It sounded like that to me. So,
Oh.
but what I wanted to say is what I wanted to ask is so. The circulation through, if I'm coming from the street and I'm a student of whatever age, and is there a way for me to walk into the complex and circulate through it without ever having to get down in a driveway or something like that and be in the way of have an accident with a vehicle or anything like that? To what degree is that taken care of by the way the walkways and landscaping is laid out? Because some people are going to be walking in, right?
Correct. Yep, there will be.
So I'm asking about the basic safe way from, you know what I'm saying? Because right now the way it's set up over there, there are points where where you really do have to get down into where people are driving, into the
Yeah,
driveways
yeah.
and stuff. Yeah.
Now on the current site, yeah.
That's my concern, is that there's a way to get from buildings to buildings without necessarily having to get down off the pathways or sidewalks in order to, and cross through the driveways and things.
Yeah, I think there is going to be some of that occurring when the number 2 passway. But we, I think a good question to ask is what are the steps to mitigate the risk and help ensure, safety in that number 2 pathway.
Yeah, because like there's I think that green right in front of when you walk in from from the career center out to the sidewalk. It's like a green area in front of the library.
Mm-hmm.
Am I saying this right? Am I recalling it correctly? You usually have to get down into the driveway, and that does concern me a bit. The other thing is that is there going to be some kind of wayfinding signs or something, so that when you're walking throughout the site, that point people to the various buildings?
I'm not sure. I think let's record that.
Jonathan, this is Jeff. I just wanted to throw, yes, we will have wayfinding signs. We typically try to work those into most of our projects, especially multi-building campuses.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks. Okay, let's move on to our next topic.
I'm sorry, could I just raise one more quick question?
Sure.
So on slide 26, I'm reading the notes now. It says not to scale. So again, I'd love to see those dismissal buses shown to scale, but I don't see on the diagram anywhere for MPSA where the parent pickup queue is going to be. So for MPSA, in addition to buses, there will also be parents and walkers. And I'd like to see that represented in the flow, because I'm concerned again that we don't have adequate space for that, and that it's going to be a real traffic jam in the neighborhood. And what it's showing right now is the buses blocking the entire space in front of the school and the field. And so I don't know where else people are supposed to be exiting. And I'd like APS to be planning for that.
That, if I can follow up with that, it's a great question. Right now, we use Highland Street as the pickup drop off for the car riders. And my understanding was that was going to continue through MPSA being in the Henry building. So I'd love to learn if the idea is differently, even in the near future. But generally we use Highland for the car riders, and it's been a challenge because we suddenly flood the area of Highland and 7th with a lot of car traffic at 2 times during the day. But assuming that doesn't change, that's where we use it now.
Yeah, that's what I figured. But the buses aren't flowing through there now, at least not in the same way, because the buses have the chance to spread out more. So I just think it's going to be really tight for that dismissal, particularly. Drop off maybe will be more spread out, but dismissal is everybody leaving at once, and that's going to be really a challenge.
Although I will admit to you that it's not the buses that are the problem, it's us, the parent drivers, who are more of the problem than the buses. But
well, and again,
yeah,
it was crowded when I did this with my kids 10 years ago, and we had a lot fewer buildings and a lot bigger parking lot. So that's why I'm just struggling to see how it's going to work.
Let's move on to the building design, and we're just going to have just to keep pace. We did spend a lot of time. I think there was a lot of great feedback and a lot of questions we can bring back to our the design team.
One question?
Sure.
About what we were just on. So when buses are driving up and dropping off, is that the closest, or even for car drop off as well? Are those the closest sites to to the entrances to the building? Are they going to be the furthest away? Because it seems like they're going to be farther away from the buildings, and it will be, you know, a long walk or a long roll over there because they're back on Highland. Is that a wrong perception on my part?
Michael and others who've had kids there, you can speak to this probably better, but I think it is still fairly close. We're not talking about a very long walk here from.
No, I mean, the buses are basically in the same place they are right now, and they pull up right in front of the front door of the school.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
They would continue to do that with the new layout.
Okay, moving on to our second topic, and we're just going to have one round here. So, you know, as you're thinking through review and your feedback, let's go through, and I'm going to start from the bottom of the list this time. So, this feedback is going to be focused on the ACC building design, including the building and massing, and the initial selection of exterior materials along the elevation. So I will keep this up as a visual, but you can see here the massing and the terrace, the overall kind of building design. I think these two graphics provide some good detailing here. And we want to ask, our feedback is around, what do you like about the design? What do you feel requires further refinements? And then any questions you might have. So I will start from the bottom. And Doris, can you start us off? Anything that jumps out at you here in terms of what you like about the design of the new ACC building, and anything that you think requires some refinement? Doris, did we lose you? She might be having some connectivity. We'll come back to you, Doris.
Oh no, I was going to pass anyway.
Oh, okay, no problem.
I'm sorry, but I wasn't realizing you said me. I thought you said the other person's name.
Oh,
okay.
No worries. Thanks, Doris. Christine, could you share any feedback you have on the ACC building?
I don't have as much comment on this. I'm much more concerned about the traffic and pedestrian flow than the design, and I'm not. But I do feel like it's showing a lot of different materials, so I'm not sure if we're really. I mean, obviously, as the neighborhood, we'd like it to look attractive. It feels like maybe there's too many things going on with the building, but this is outside my area of expertise. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions on the design? Aside
Well,
from
again, I'm struggling to understand how many different types of materials are going to be on the building. It looks like, I don't know if we're getting samples of different things. So it's going to be like 3 main materials, but here's 4 options for each one, or if there are really that many different. Again, this is where I would personally really benefit from a presentation of this information and not just, you know, being asked to try to figure out what these slides are telling me.
Thank you. Michael.
One minor comment, and just that in the Montessori community very early on, there was a question about how reflective the material would be. Just wondering how much sunlight gets reflected off of the building. You can align that with what Christine was just saying. You know, I really don't quite understand the materials that are being used. I'm not questioning per se. I'm just admitting my ignorance on how it's all supposed to line up. But I think we certainly want things to look clean and bright, but we also don't want to get fried as we're walking by the building.
Okay. Thank you. Cynthia.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
So I do have a couple of questions. First of all, maybe I think ideas like this were expressed in the first slide, but it would be really helpful if all the exits were known, labeled on this building, the other buildings too. I think people would be interested in that. But for example, when Michael talked about, first of all, I really like the how the mass of the building is broken up, because you kind of have this block and then it juts out a little bit, and block and juts out a little bit. But my memory of an earlier slide that at least one of those jut out things is actually an entrance into the school. So it would be, I think, really helpful if someone could put up a slide that showed, I mean, there's some schools that have 16 doors in and out, right? So that we see where there are egress and, entrance points around. I guess all the facilities might answer some of the questions that you're hearing. The next thing is on the materials. I kind of initially had the same reaction about, gee whiz, there's a lot of materials. And then I started thinking more and I thought, well, I kind of like that because it kind of breaks up the massiveness of it to have, I'm not saying, which are the right materials, but I'm just saying this variation of materials. I like the idea that it breaks up a very large building into more discrete segments. So I kind of like that, if that's the thinking behind it. And I do know that some metal treatments can be attractive, like Ham Middle School has metal treatments, and I think it's very attractive, at least now. Maybe in 20 years it won't look that way, but I kind of like that. And then I wondered if, I'm guessing, but actually I don't know. All the other high schools, they have like a mascot, they have colors for their school. Does anyone know if the Career Center has, are they the blue and, I don't know, red, or do they have colors? And can those colors be, incorporated into the, some of these different materials that were being used? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Love to know if the Career Center has a mascot, has colors, and if we can, if they do, if we can use those, in these covering things. Thank you.
Yep. They purple is one of their prominent colors as a school. A lot of their apparel, and you'll see that in a lot of that's one of their primary colors. I forget the name of the mascot offhand, but yeah, that Beth, I know Bethany could capture that feedback, and we can bring that back to the team.
And if the neighborhood hates purple, maybe the neighborhood needs to say, if the colors were X and Y. I don't know. It's just
sure
spirit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Wakefield has the green, and that's incorporated in some of the elements over there. Wakefield. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any final comments? Just speak up. I won't call your name, but just.
I had another comment. This is the first time I've seen on the slide that you're displaying to the right as we look there, but kind of the curtain wall, the covered, walkway. Yeah. I like that too. I'm glad that you provided that. Just to protect kids from the elements as they're, exiting out onto the street. So I happen to like that. And that's the first time I've seen that in a slide.
Great.
I'm a little confused by this slide, though. I think it's showing us the back of the building between MPSA and the Career Center. Is that what that's showing, that image on the right?
Yeah, that is.
And that open space, which school does that belong to? Because it looks like open space, but I thought that's where the MPSA playground is going now. And again, it seems like there should be a fence or something there.
It's got to be the MPSA playground. I mean, that is where they were going to move our new playground.
Yeah, so I think this graphic is not appropriately, because it looks like this is a very generous space for the high school, but I don't think that's it at all. I think there needs to be a large fence here showing the differentiation between the elementary space and the high school space. So I think that needs to be reflected in these pictures so people can better understand what's happening.
This
Hey
is not
guys,
what.
Steve,
Yeah.
sorry, Steve Stricker, APS's project manager. That is indeed Montessori play space for when the Montessori is in their current building. So that's a correct assumption.
So can we show this with a fence to represent what it's actually going to look like?
Yeah, absolutely. The renderings didn't get that far, obviously, but yes, there will be a fence there to define.
I mean, it does change how you view it. I mean, and obviously,
Sure.
I think we all agree the fence is really important, but it makes it a lot less aesthetically pleasing. But I think that's an accurate reflection of how we're using these spaces. So,
Agreed.
and again, I think it gets to the site flow and how people can get on and off the campus. And, you know, again, if we think about walkers getting picked up, are they going to have access onto 7th Street from the elementary school, from the high school? You know, what's that really going to look like? What's the flow going to be? So I just want to understand that better.
This is Doris, and one of the things that I would hope is that between the colors used on the buildings and versus the doors, for example, that there be it's important to provide contrast. So for somebody who is legally blind and has also certain vision disabilities, or like cataracts, congenital cataracts, or glaucoma, or some other common vision impairment. For example, I don't have any irises, so if it's, you know, some of the light colors they're using these days in buildings that reflect the sun and stuff on sunny days, you can't distinguish very well between, you know, doors versus wall, or where the entrance is. So I would, and sometimes also changes in texture help with that. So that's what I'd ask for, you know, with the thought that you could use the school colors or whatever. And then if you're going to provide some sort of signage on doors, I know some of the bigger, especially very suburban schools are using these big numbers, but I don't know how that's going to look in you know, to designate if there's 16 doors, which are the doors and which ones are the unlocked doors, because I'm assuming that not all doors are going to be entrance doors. You know what I'm saying? When you're looking at them, at least from afar, from a car driving up or walking up the walkway or something.
Thank you.
So looking to what colors make the best contrast, you know.
Thank you for that, Doris. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to our third topic, the parking garage design. You can see here there's 2 renderings. There was some updates to the design from the last meeting, including the massing and the initial layout and circulation, and the preliminary proposal of an exterior wall screening and materials. So I'll start from the top now, just working way down. Again, similar feedback we've been seeking. What do you like? What do you think requires refinements? And then any questions. So either of those 3 buckets when we come to you. Cynthia?
Okay, so my first question is my group, which has been D. I know Michael's been in it the whole time, maybe some of the rest of you, but there was this recommendation that for safety, the garage needed at least 2 entrance exits, and we're this far along and I still only see 1 entrance exit. So I'm happy to stop saying this every meeting we have if someone says that's really not true. You really don't need 2. 1 is just fine for security and safety. But ever since that came up in our very first meeting about there should be there, you know, people say we're taking notes, blah, 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 and there hasn't been. So I'd like for someone to say, stop asking, stop saying, because there's only going to be one, or you're right, we really do need to figure out how we can accommodate that. Having said that, I do like the fact that the garage has been placed in, that you've taken advantage of the slope to reduce the height of the garage over there towards Highlands. So thank you very much. I do like that. I really like the idea of at least how it looks in the designs. You call them fins. I like your fin idea to kind of make it look less like a you know, parking garage. And obviously the more plantings, the more trees you can get around to screen that. But those were all comments. I guess the new comment would be just, I like the idea, the fin idea, whoever came up with that. And so I guess I should stop at that point. Next person.
Thank you. Michael.
The aesthetics are intriguing and interesting, and I applaud the efforts there. You know, I would love to see it in person, but from what I can imagine from the renderings, it looks attractive, or more attractive than a parking garage. I want to say also that the idea of a smaller garage is also attractive, particularly to the Montessori community, as it helps us make better use and more use out of the green space that's there. We're going to need 2 play spaces, one for primary and one for the upper elementary, and they need to be separated. So the more we can allocate to those 2, the better. The caveat to that is it goes to a policy that, you know, we're not discussing today, but as long as the policy of the garage is that the staff on site at every building, ACC, MPSA, everybody who uses it, as well as whatever community use needs to be done, as long as that can be accounted for in the capacity of the garage, you know, having a slightly smaller garage is just fine.
I want to ditto what Michael said. You can have as small as you want, as long as you provided enough.
Thank you. Thank you. Christine?
Yeah, so my main questions have to do with the pedestrian flow out of the garage. I think to Cynthia's point, it looks like there is just one opening to the garage to me on 9th Street. I'm okay with that, but I'm not quite sure I'm understanding where people exit the garage. And again, there's not a clear path. Obviously, in the long-term vision, when ACC turns into a new MPSA space, that garage is conveniently located for that building, but the garage is never conveniently located for the new proposed ACC building, and nor is it conveniently located for the MPSA building. And I know some of the previous schematic designs had some ADA parking noted, but I assume those are probably temporary drop-off and pickup spaces, not necessarily maybe ADA spaces for staff who might need a permanent ADA space to park near the building. So I'd like to understand better what those assumptions are for ADA spaces and which of them are pickup drop-off spaces versus more permanent spaces for staff who may need closer access to these buildings, given how far away the parking garage is. And then I'd also like to understand what the proposed walkways are from the garage to the different buildings.
Good questions. We'll have that logged in to make sure that those get answered.
Jonathan, I'm so sorry. This is Cynthia again. Can I just jump in because Christine has prompted? I just want to go back to the first slide to say that I assumed that little cement-looking square that links the garage to the old building is a covered physical link. If it's just a sidewalk, I always, you know, what I was hoping to see would be a covered physical link from the garage to the old school. And it also, Christine's comment reminds me of comment made in one of our very first meetings about the ability for people in the garage to walk through the old school, exit the other side to get to other places on the campus. This may raise security concerns, I don't know. But I would hope that that kind of flow would be allowed. And I'd like to hear the the pros or the cons. Like, it can be accommodated, like after the elementary school moves over there, after the Montessori school moves there, can there still be flow? Park my car. Can I still walk through that building to get to other areas of the campus? Yes or no, or why not? Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
I mean, I think
Doris.
that would be a big security concern to allow anyone to walk through the new MPSA building to get to the ACC building. But again, I think this is a legitimate question that ties right back to that ADA question I raised, because if you're a teacher bringing in a big load of stuff, right, which happens, like you might be bringing the music teacher bringing in instruments or whatever, you're not going to park in the garage and do that. So these are trips that happen in and out of schools. How is that going to work? And again, I have concerns that it's not very functional in this design.
Thank you. Doris?
Yeah, I have similar concerns about the distance and pathways throughout the site that link them to the garage, because since the garage is further away from the ACC, I would think there would be more students as well as teachers in that building who might be using the garage. And I'm concerned about the slope in order to, have a nicer, for lack of a better way to put it, view of the garage as part of the whole grounds and setup, and what you're going to have to do to ensure an accessible, what you're doing to ensure an accessible path to travel up the slope. I'm also wondering what kinds of where you're placing curb ramps and what type that you're using to what type of detectable warnings you're using. This is particularly important when you're crossing the driveways coming in and out of garages and such, and crossing into, whether you're going to use the original detectable warning style with the yellow truncated domes, or whether you're going to use something more like Arlington is right now using on its sidewalks and streets, which is kind of be dicey. It's allowable, but
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit less protection, particularly where you're near a garage or a driveway entrance.
Thank you. And we have 4 minutes, and the final section is really kind of a catch-all for anything that additional questions and concerns. So why don't we go through once and just above all of any other questions or concerns with the schematic design progress and any specific areas that should receive further development or focus. I think one recurrent theme I definitely heard throughout our conversation this evening was around the flow throughout the site, the busing, the adequacy of what's been planned. It seems to be one big theme that I think we might, reiterate here as well. But I'm going to open it back up to the group and just go through I'll start back with Doris and then work up the list again. But just final thoughts on any additional, either of these items, 4 or 5, any additional questions or concerns you have that haven't been captured or that have come to mind, and then any specific areas of the project that should receive further development or focus. Again, these are things that haven't already been captured.
Yeah, and one is that just jumped into my mind is because I think like some of the buildings might be used in the evenings and such. What is the lighting scheme for the the driveways, walkways, and just on the site?
Yeah.
And
Good question.
how are you ensuring that different pathways will be that there will be consistency among walkways, or whether walkways and areas will be at even lighting, or whether it'll be dark areas is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Christine?
Yeah, so just one thing we haven't talked about specifically is, I know we're trying to show in the slides various future states when different buildings exist or don't exist, but I don't also see consideration to what happens during the construction period. And I think again, from a neighborhood perspective, I'm representing Penrose. We also want to understand how it's going to work while all this construction is going on. And I can envision that there are additional challenges to flow and traffic and everything with construction, with fencing, whatever the setbacks are for the construction fencing, which might be different. So again, I'd like to see APS fully representing and considering all those things as well, and demonstrating that they believe this is workable through every stage of the project, which again, I have concerns about.
Thank you. Michael?
In addition,
Okay. Cynthia?
Well, first of all, Doris, you stole my thunder, but I do. So I just want to make sure it's like at least two people spoke to the whole lighting design. That would be really nice if we could see that, again, for safety and security reasons. And again, for safety and security, I forgot to mention on the garage, I like the idea that that there would be a see-through on the stairwell. It looks like they're proposing to put a covering that you'd be able to see through to the stairwell. So I just want to say I really like that as well.
Great. All right. Well, we finished in time. This was great. A lot of great questions. And
Can I
I think,
ask one thing though
oh,
that
sure.
prompted me to ask?
Yeah.
Which is, what is the vertical circulation in the garages?
Yeah.
Is it only stairs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's a great question. And, certainly from an accessibility standpoint, if there's not going to be an elevator, how is there, like with the ramps and sloping, or is there going to be an adequate number of handicap spots on the ground level? And how would we?
Additional, yes, because, what percentages are you used, and particularly if they'll also be used for visitors? So if it's more, there is certain percentages under ADA for visitor spaces, and then there are also percentages that would be needed, for programmatic use and such, and how, whether it's going to be first come, first serve, or what the deal is going to be.
Sure. That's excellent.
And the size of the spaces, like, because there would have to be some van accessible spaces, which are wider versus regular accessible spaces for regular vehicles.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we have compiled all of your feedback and questions and comments, and it will get passed back to the design team and others. And one of the things that happens after all these meetings is they kind of aggregate everything, look at some of the common threads in terms of FAQs, and those will be developed, and we will be sure to get back with you. Our communications folks, Daryl and others who will be working more directly on this project, we'll circle back with folks and communicate back. So thank you again, everyone, for being here tonight and sharing your feedback. We're going to go back to the main room now. There's a few wrap-up activities and share-outs and that we will do before there's also a public comment for folks who were not part of the BLPC to share. So that's kind of some of our remaining items for this evening. But thank you all again, and we'll see you back in the main room. You can exit now and return back to the main link.
Actually, put on your list automated doors. Are there going to be automatic doors?
Yep, we'll put those up.
Okay,
Put
thanks.
that on. Yep.